Dear Diary, I have to admit that my mind wandered at times during the last meeting. It was great, and even a little intimidating, to work with David again, and I still can't get my head around calling him by his first name. But I'm worried about Peter. He missed half of a vitally important discussion, and his attempts at jovially glossing over it seemed forced and insincere. I've known him for a long time, and he's always been the easygoing opposite of my own excessive seriousness. But now that I think back, even as early as during the inauguration, he's been too easy on the drink, too flippant, brushing off any serious matter. Something is wrong, and I am torn. As his friend, I need to help him, but I'm also having an even bigger responsibility as president. Can I trust him to fulfill his role? Can I rely on him if the situation gets dangerous? I believe that he would never betray me, but if I can't get on top of what's going on, he could easily become a liability, a weak link my enemies would be all too happy to exploit. I do hope I get the opportunity to find out what it is exactly that ails Peter, but once again Anton is torn between his personal responsibility as a friend and between his responsibility as the president of Swordland. Because if Peter can be blackmailed, then that would be difficult. We have news, and we've got some. We've got a fair few dossiers to review. So let's go through the news first. The Economist. Okay. The hallowed halls of the Grand National Assembly of Swordland were recently alive with spirited debates concerning the Energy Protection Act of 1932. Of course, they won't like that. Franz Richter of the People's Freedom and Justice Party and independent MP Mansun Leke tabled a proposal to repeal the EPA. That is unfortunate. I had very much hoped that... where would that be? Where is he? Yeah, he's the spokesman of the Independents. He was far left, wasn't he? Like involved with the Workers' Party of Bludia. Why is he for that now? Tabled a proposal to repeal the EPA, currently restricting foreign ownership of security-sensitive energy corporations to 20%. This is a significant move as it brings to the fore the crucial issue of market openness and foreign investment. This repeal, we believe, can catalyze economic growth and bring foreign direct investment to a market long protected from international competition. The old guard must embrace the changing global economic order or risk lagging behind. Let me translate that for you briefly. The people who are paying us and our editors would very much like to have that law repealed. Otherwise, what are we paying politicians for? And with paying, we mean bribing. Because that would allow them to funnel additional international funds into the pockets of the owners and allow them to sell sell energy into a competing market where a rising international demand, especially from the West, is meeting a constricted supply. And I still have my suspicions about that maintenance break that they're taking there. Someone is messing with the oil price here. And then, of course, if the nation of Swordland desperately needs energy to get out of the economic depression and restart its economy, then, because, manufacturing, transport, all of that needs energy, then, they will be more than happy to outbid the foreigners, wouldn't they? So yeah, that's what's behind the whole thing. It's a globalization mechanism in order to line the pockets of the oligarchs. The bigger, so far no surprise here. The much bigger question mark for me, well, Franz Richter, I'm not surprised that he does that. Although I don't know if he is corrupt. Currently, I'm suspecting anybody to be corrupt unless proven otherwise, given recent events. But I am surprised that Leke is for this, because he's coming from the Workers' Party of Bludia. He's left wing. What the heck is he doing playing with the oligarchs? So I'm going to take a quick note of that I suspect that he might have either vested interest, as in shareholders, or in one of the companies, or that he has been paid off in order to do that, which means either way, this is a problematic development, because I was hoping that the independents, even after Circus, would be a staunch ally in our attempts at joining the joining with the socialists in the East. And this does not sound like it. This sounds like globalization, privatization, and corruption. Let's see what the Holsworth Post has to say. Remus Holstron criticizes Workers' Bill. Who is Remus Holstron? He's the deputy of the National Front Party. Okay. Founding member of the National Front and current group deputy chairman. Is one of the soldiers who worked under Luderin that helped establish the Young Swords. Okay, so he's the de facto founder of the Young Swords as well. He was blamed for having been behind many of the atrocities that took place against the Bludish. Okay. And he was promoting ethno-nationalist policies in the 30s, became a famous figure for his aggressive speeches in the GNA. Mr. Holstrom and many others in our leadership created an unapproachable, unreasonable political movement which is expected to lose in every direction. The rise of Kiebener in the 40s, he lost his influence and resigned in 49. After Kiebener was voted as the leader, he was later invited to rejoin. Ahead of the elections, was appointed deputy chairman. I would have expected his beard to be somewhat slimmer, but yeah, other than that, we see where that goes. So Mr. Holstrom is of the old ultra-nationalist racist guard. That and he is concerningly so the Kiebener is the modern front of the far right, the modern face of the far right, but behind the scenes it sounds like Holstrom is very much still pulling the strings. So what is he objecting to? Voiced objections to the Workers' Rights Bill currently in its conceptual phase. His criticism targeted the bill's fifth section, which extends the same rights to migrants or undocumented workers as to Swedish citizens. This proposed legislation has sparked a debate on the rights of migrant workers and the responsibility of employers, indicating a turning point in Swordland's labor laws. Okay, that's actually an interesting one. So we do have to separate the art and the artist. Obviously, he would be against that, not because it's reasonable, but because he believes that foreigners should be removed from Swordland on account of being maliciously foreign. That said, migrant workers is one thing. So workers' rights, obviously, it goes again into the detail. There needs to be, when it comes to safety, when it comes to non-exploitation and similar things, this needs to cover all workers, regardless where they're coming from. At the same time, we can ask, why are we having undocumented migrants and why are we having migrant workers? Is this flowing into, if we are already suffering from high 16% unemployment, and a noticeable economic depression or at least recession that we're looking at right now? So that is a very valid question to ask. Obviously, the solution to that isn't allow enslavement of foreigners, because they're not like us. But the question is, and that goes back to the immigration question: can we afford that kind of immigration policy? Anyway, someone to keep a very close eye on. Energy Protection Act repeal process begins. A significant development unfolded in the Grand National Assembly as the process to repeal the EPA of 32 was initiated. This act, presently restricting foreign ownership of security-sensitive energy corporations to 20%, is now under threat. Vocal advocates Richter and USP reformists. Oh, we've got another one. So we're getting a little clarity in our own party now, something I've been sorely lacking previously. All I've known was that, where do we have it here? All I've known was that there is a pro-reform sentiment within the party, which is no surprise. A party that big is going to have a centrist bloc, a left and a right wing. But we haven't really known who it was so far. So we've got the reformist wing leader, Albin Klavin. He's arguing that repeal could stimulate economic growth and foreign investment. It'll line the pockets. It might. So don't get me wrong. It's not that we need to run an isolationist. That we need to run an isolationist policy, trade policy. However, when it comes to national security, energy is right at the top of there. Because if we don't control our energy, then someone else does. And if that somebody else wishes to blackmail us or hurt our economy, all they have to do is, well, stop producing energy. So this is right at the top of the list of stuff that needs to be nationalized. The whole the energy resource extraction and production. So this is the opposite direction of where we want to go. However, opposition from the USP and National Front Party remains, protecting Swedish strategic industries from foreign control. Decision now awaits next month's crucial vote. I'm starting to think that I would need that veto because it seems that the globalist and oligarch interests are significant, have a significant strength even within our own party. Let's have a quick look at Klavin, because I haven't heard of him before. So he is member of the GNA, member of USP, and leader of the Progressive faction. He's been a strong supporter of Alfonso. He was instrumental in passing of the free market reforms, became famed for his controversial speeches. Why were they controversial? Could we know? Was labeled as the face of a new generation by the media. After the recession, he joined the calls for Congress to elect a new presidential nominee and abandoned Alfonso. So he hasn't been paid enough. He's been in it with... so either he truly believes it, and he truly is a globalist reformer, or he was tagging along with the whole privatization. And then if he believed it, and then he found out that Alfonso was effectively corrupt to the bone, and his administration, at that point he withdrew support, or he hasn't gotten enough out of it. And when he saw that the ship had sailed and Alfonso wasn't going, well, effectively Alfonso's corruption was so rampant that the economy was tanking. He had to distance himself in order for his own political survival. He nominated himself as the next candidate, but did not get much support, which eventually led to candidacy of me. He has called for constitutional reforms. Okay, so this guy is somebody we need to keep an eye on as well. Emergency in Anrika, down here. Troubling news are coming from the mayor of Anrika, who reported that a state of chaos exists in the city and called an emergency directive authorizing him to use his security powers. In an announcement, Mayor Lester said, "We are reporting 20 police officers heavily wounded, 2 police stations burned down and several shot. The city is in a state of emergency and we are trying to restore order. The local gendarmerie began assisting the mayor after the emergency request was made. The armed units are now securing critical junctions and key infrastructure like power stations, hospitals, and the municipality building. Local NFP leaders have announced that they will assist the local enforcement with the task of keeping the streets safe by reporting violent dissenters." Reporting violent dissenters, a statement criticized by the local PFJP official. Okay, so things are not going well, and this was my main criticism, I think, last episode. Yes, foreign policy is important, but our country is burning. We're about not to have a country anymore. And then trade agreements with Agnolia, honestly, are not important. Nobody will care, because there will not be a Swordland if we are descending into civil war. So my priorities are twofold. Number one, Lilias needs to get the streets under control. If she can't get the streets under control, we're going to have to... So, in my opinion, what we need to do next is we need to have an emergency meeting with the leaders of the NFP as well as any leader from the Red Youth that we can find. And we need to come to an agreement that violence in the streets will need to stop, while that all crimes will be punished no matter what political side they're on. We need to have Lilius in there, and Lilius needs to make very clear to these two leaders that it's either that or martial law. And if there is martial law, and the NFP decides that they want to be out in the streets and play vigilantes, they will be arrested as well. Until the violence stops. That is priority number 1. Everything else can wait. Priority number 2 is, in terms of foreign politics, not to discuss the pros and cons of having a conversation about the viability of the Valen presidency, and if we want to invest there. We need security guarantees against Rumburg, because they are both fueling the violence, and they're obviously preparing for an outright war, which means we need to make very quick and serious advances towards the east in order to get security guarantees from one of the major blocks that Swordland is not to be messed with. Everything else can wait. So I do hope that for our own good here, that we get to this very quickly, because everything else is honestly just really secondary at this point. Anyway, venting that. So yes, we now have a state of emergency in Anrika. First city. Let's have a quick look. Anrika is, the city is in lockdown. A state of emergency has been declared. Mayor is from my party, actually, and ethnicity is. This isn't even an ethnically diverse city. This is a city smack dab in the middle of the wealthier bits of Swordland. There's no religious or ethnic diversity in here, and that is on fire. I mean, I would have assumed that this is on fire, or that is on fire, or heck, even that is on fire. But here, that's bad. That's really bad. And I do sincerely hope that we're going to get the option to do something about this very, very soon, because the longer we leave this, the less of a country we actually have here. And the worse it gets for the economy, because the graph will go down, and when it hits the red line, bad things happen. And I will not take responsibility for this, because the game literally hasn't allowed me to do the things that I believe are most important for 2 turns already. Look, I love the game, don't get me wrong. It's just that if you see what needs to be done, and the game doesn't allow you to do it, but instead, oh, you didn't do the thing that needed to be done, that I didn't allow you to do it. Now look how bad things have gotten. I mean, from a story perspective, it makes sense, but there's a certain amount of frustration around. All right, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Patience, Terry, patience. And read the news. Let's read the Lachhaven Times. At least these people haven't been completely against me. Swordland Today and Radical recently as well hasn't been super friendly. Okay, Lachhaven Times should give us something to work with that's a bit more neutral. The unrest continues. Unrest in the streets is continuing, and the tension between different groups has led to new clashes with hundreds wounded and sometimes several dead a week. Okay, that is a civil war. We are in a state of civil war. Our reporters have interviewed dozens of protest leaders from the regional capitals, revealing different demands from the people. 3 subjects stand out: freedom of expression, democratic change, and economic security. On the other hand, many also went out to protest the worsening living conditions under the recession. Okay, let's take that apart. We've talked to the people who are out protesting. Freedom of expression, understandable, but not the root cause. So it's not that they're out there because they're repressed necessarily. They're out there because of economic security. Democratic change, nice. Economic security is the one. the only reason they have support in the street to call for freedom of expression and democratic change is because of the lack of economic security. If everybody was doing well, earning enough, having a good life, sure, there would still be people calling for more freedom of expression and democratic change, but they wouldn't do so violently in the streets, but they would use the normal means. Living conditions. The economy is the basis, and we're not getting the economy underway until we have the blood in the streets stopping, and we're not stopping the blood in the streets until the economy gets better, or we put the hammer down and say, that's it, people. And we're not doing that as we have to do that in a way that is not. Here I go again. We have to do that okay, I keep it short. We have to do that in a way that is not giving the people who are trying to gain political capital out of what's going on by just coming down heavy as the government, right? So if we effectively declare martial law and get the army marching in the streets, they all can go and look. You see how he's oppressing me? You know what I mean? So this needs to be done in conjunction with the ringleaders of the political violence, because this isn't. Yes, this has its own momentum, born out of immiseration, but there are political forces behind this, both domestic and foreign, that have vested interests in destabilizing the country and dragging it into a certain direction. So these need to be publicized and publicly told. They need to come out in public and say, no, we have to stop. And then if it doesn't stop, then they will need to be asked, look, do you have your people under control or not? If you don't, we're going to bring in the army. That's the only way to do this safely without, getting everything to burn to the ground. And I'll shut up now and get on with it. Every third person our team has talked to mentioned the need for a strengthening of the political system that needs to open up to reflect different opinions. I think we're actually having a fairly representative system. I think there's a perception here more that I think there's a perception here that people have the opinion that they know how the problem needs to be solved, and because the government doesn't do what they think should be done, people who think they own the country, if you get that reference, then they're upset and calling for and feeling oppressed. Our eyes on the ground witnessed both peaceful and violent acts. We saw bus stations destroyed, shops burned, and people being carried to the hospitals in ambulances. But there were also calm scenes where police forces allowed peaceful protesters from all sides of the political spectrum to make their voice heard and disperse. Certain cities like Anrika, Erzurum, and Arvori are much more damaged by the unrest. The overall momentum of the protest doesn't seem likely to stop soon. No, it doesn't. Okay, I'm not going there. Deep breath. So we've got Anrika. How many more do I have? I've got three articles. So we have to go all the way to the skilled foreign worker gap. All right, let's have a quick look. Anrika, Erzurum. So it's Anrika. Where's Erzurum? Erzurum is here. And what was the third one? I think it was Arvori, was it? There are widespread protests there as well. Okay, we have more. Arvori, Anrika, and Erzurum. So Anrika surprising, the other two not so much. This is what I was expecting. Welfare issues of Narbel. Narbel is over there, isn't it? Yeah. Narbel, a city that was once an important trade stop for the Markian Empire, has been in a steep decline for the last decade. We have uncovered the hard truth from the residents themselves. This is actually valuable because, believe it or not, as the president, I sorely lack this sort of information. K.A., 46, a shepherd living near the Cavendish Mountains that did not wish to disclose his real name, understandably, has made shocking remarks about the city's and region's lack of healthcare services. He has waited almost 5 months just to get an appointment in the rural region. Another resident, a farmer, who also did not wish to disclose his name, is living near the outskirts of the Narbel. the Narbel, or just Narbel? It's a city, right? His children, 14 and 16, have to use dangerous mountain paths to walk to their school located 2 kilometers away, even in the harshest seasons. I did say in the very beginning, education. Although, to be fair, in retrospect, I probably should not have. Because I did not know how bad things were. Okay. In hindsight, education at this current point is probably the least of our problems. But at least that's one of the items. Lochhaven Times is relatively centrist, so why are they coming around with a skilled foreign worker gap and we're having a 16% unemployment? Okay, that is education. The Swedish economy faces a critical challenge, the demand-supply gap for skilled foreign workers. With increasing technological advancement, the need for specialized skills is on the rise. However, the inability to attract and retain foreign talent hinders Sordland's potential for economic growth. An inclusive approach towards immigration policy and an ecosystem conducive to skilled foreign workers are essential to address this gap. Yes and no. Importing, if we are running a 16% unemployment, we are running an aging population. And clearly, our education system isn't up to speed. That needs to be fixed. We may need skilled foreign workers temporarily for a few years or so until our education system can start actually bringing people around domestically. Because then the next thing, if you need to attract employees internationally, you're competing internationally on a salary base, which then leads to unhappiness. And we've already had that, I think, last episode, that people were unhappy about wage mismatches and all kinds of follow-on effects. So a certain amount of skilled immigration is fine, but the vast majority of our workers' needs, especially with this high of an unemployment, points to a defunct or insufficient education system that we need to fix. Because otherwise, we'll end up with heaps more problems and a multi-class society. And obviously, Anton is here for the common man in the streets. And with that, we mean the streets in Swordland, not the streets elsewhere. Not to say that we can't have people coming in, but it's not the solution. Swordland today doesn't like me. The Alfonso. Let's see if I can read this with a straight face. A beacon of charity. Today we highlight the efforts of the Alfonso Foundation, a beacon of charity in Swordland. Founded by Ewald Alfonso, the third president of Swordland, the foundation has taken strides towards mitigating income inequality and addressing homelessness that he caused. Committed to long-term solutions. I can do it. Committed to long-term solutions, the foundation works tirelessly to promote fair wages, improve access to education, and champion policies favoring economic balance. Ewald Alfonso may have stepped away from politics, but his impact continues through this noble initiative. Oh, God. Good grief. Yes, obviously, this is a load of bovine manure, and I'm actually quietly wondering, because Alfonso did have tried to step away from the whole what was it called, like the oligarch group there, something group, Lotharberg group. Not Bilderberg, Lotharberg. Bilderberg's in our timeline, Lotharberg group. And it almost sounds like he's trying to charity wash his reputation in anticipation of a corruption crackdown, such that it'll make it harder for us to publicly do something about him, because he will be known as the great philanthropist. But yeah, of course, Swordland today is a clown, is Coronti's clown show, so no great surprises there. What does the Radical have to say? Let's see. We need democracy. We have long demanded the expansion of civil rights with reforms to modernize our nation. When the previous government blamed the Supreme Court for not allowing the reforms, the opposition was quick to point out the flaws within the constitution and brought focus on reforming the governmental structures to open way for further civil reforms. Now the reformists have increased the number, and with a president who is seen as a symbol of change in office, we are waiting for results. Whether it is the leader of the opposition or our current president, somebody has to break the cycle and rewrite the constitution made by Sol. Yeah, we're on that. Whose cult of personality has shaped our current divided national spirit and must be broken. Will President Rayne stand up to the establishment and listen to the people? I most certainly will, good friends over at The Radical. We're going to get to that. Unfortunately, the streets are on fire. So we can't until that's sorted. At least if I have anything to say about it. And I am the president, so I insist that I get to say something about it. All right, geopolitics. The response to the Rumburg consulate closure in Lachhaven was quick. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs sent a strongly worded official diplomatic condemnation letter accusing Rumburg of destabilizing Swordland and the surrounding region. Several nations have made supporting statements for Swordland in the Alliance of Nations. It is clear that this letter is not just directed at Rumburg, but to all surrounding countries observing the serious situation. To a degree, this is almost as nuclear as the eviction or as the closure of like a reciprocal closure of an embassy on our side. However, we'll see if the Alliance of Nations still holds any sway in a developing two superpower bloc kind of world, or if it is becoming rapidly obsolete by facts on the ground, similar to what the League of Nations would have been. So the supporting statements are all very nice. The question is, can we get anybody to make, I mean, obviously not publicly, but can we get anybody to make diplomatic statements to Rumburg saying that hands off, we will not tolerate destabilization and invasion of another country here. Given that we're right at the fissure between the two power blocks, they're obviously potentially not too terrified of this. So I don't have high hopes that this is going to do much. But still, it creates a public situation in which, any action by Rumburg might maybe delayed a little bit on that. Energy, in a recent development, Lespower, the largest energy corporation of the ATO member Lesbia, announced an energy deal with Palais over the disputed sea gas field Aureus. Risia, which has laid claims over these fields, is likely to see an escalation in tension. The Alliance of Nations, through its mechanism Andor, has been closely monitoring the situation, attempting to diffuse the issue diplomatically. As energy resources become a major bargaining chip, this event adds another layer of complexity to regional politics. So let's get that clear. Lesbia, and which is kind of turbo-capitalist Western, Palais, which is one of the old, I think one of the smaller fracture monarchies, and there are some gas fields over in the sea. Actually, let's look at the. Is that all? Yeah, that is all. Let's look at the map. So we've got. We're probably having gas fields in the ocean somewhere here, and this whole story becomes a. And then we've got the Grand Duchy of Palais, and we've got the Kingdom of Risia, and I think this was like a breakaway of some sort, but. Risia is putting claims on the gas fields. Palais is putting claims on the gas fields, and they have effectively had a look at the turbo-capitalists in the north and said, look, money. And they have said, yes, please. And now Risia feels left behind. Another reason, you see, this is the primary example why we need to nationalize hydrocarbons and make that we actually don't need to repeal, well, we do need to repeal the 20% the 20% investment bit, because we need to actually nationalize these things. Anyway, that's the news done, but we do have a few reports to go through. Obviously, with the country in fire, I think we'll probably get a few. So Arvery was one of the cities that had seen significant unrest. A young swords member claimed links to the government. A detained young swords member in Arvery claimed that he has connection to the local government. We have been investigating the truth of his claims, but we're not able to find any further leads for now. Investigations about this case will be continuing. So Arvery is having a significant Agno-Swordish minority, and is actually governed by the USP. So why would a young sword have this might be the conservative wing of the USP. USP is a big party, so not entirely out of the question. Leads, however, to the thought: do we have potentially elements within our own party, factions within our own party, that are lining themselves with the NFP and are looking for a right-wing, especially given my public directions, and looking for a right-wing establishment of a right-wing government instead. Not out of the question. What do we have in Estord? In Estord, the Communist Party of Swordland and the Labour Union of Swordland have begun to protest against GASOM. The protest, aimed at voicing concerns over GASOM's activities, has drawn significant attention. CPS and LUS have united their forces, adding to the intensity of the protest. The reaction of the Narbel administration and GASOM to these protests is closely watched. So, GASOM is in Luckhaven. They are the ones who are... They were the ones who closed the offshore gas field for maintenance, weren't they? Let's have a quick look. I'm not sure if we looked at this before, but I just have to refresh my memory here. It's one of the largest corporations in Swordland. The Revolution's Energy Department of United Contana had started the company as a joint venture with the ambitions to influence Swordland economically. Political instability in 27 and the fall of civil war led to the state to sell his shares. Swordish businessmen have acquired assets on the cheap due to post-Civil War recession, no surprise there. One, Ewald Alfonso, had acquired a slim majority, was elected CEO. Under Alfonso's tenure, hired world-class civil engineering, mechanical and petroleum engineers. Expanded its primary operations around Narbel in the Nargis region, where many untapped gas resources are located. Investment led by the corporation excavation in and around Narbel turned it from a town to a city. Nature Preservation Foundation criticized the damage to wildlife. Corporation has fulfilled most of the gas needs. Sold a small part of shares to the state. Applied for one contract to do the Sol Dam. So we've got the Swordish State Corporation and the Swordish Grid Corporation. GASOM was the only private corporation to work on the construction. Alfonso resigned from his role and became the board's chairman due to his pressing political ambitions. Company has been stagnating and seeking further investment to increase the declining production capacity. So, what are the concerns that they have been voicing? I would love to know. What has been the reaction of GASOM? I would love to know. Given that it's the union, I'm assuming that it's labor conditions. So they have been stagnating over here after Alfonso left, probably because he has pillaged the company for his own personal profit or that of his cronies. And they might be doing they are doing ecologically questionable things. And they might also be running worker exploitation, especially that they are effectively created the town as a worker town for the extraction. All of that should be nationalized, and then we'll have to take a very close look at corruption in these levels. Talking about corruption, Lachhaven, center of corruption. Communist Party of Swordland Labor Union have set up a picket line in the city. The two organizations, after recently moving to the Gasom HQ in the city, are actively expressing their discontent. The discontent about what? The situation is attracting attention, with the impact on the city's daily functioning yet to be determined. Response of the local administration is being keenly observed. What has been the response of the local administration? I need more. More details, please. Because it is inherently difficult to make decisions based on people don't like things. Do something. We have one more report. From the Continental Security Pact. Okay. Am I finally... Okay, I'm crossing my fingers here. Is this going in the direction I want it to go? Right. The CSP has a plan. Let's see. In a calculated effort to expand its geopolitical sway, the Continental Security Pact, spearheaded by Vice Secretary Chairman Tokensintley Iotake, has unveiled a colossal investment scheme aimed at revolutionizing Rika's infrastructure and education sectors. As the continent of Rika emerges as a fresh battleground of the global tug of ideologies, an increasing number of revolutions embracing millennialism and Volkslandian socialism indicate a shifting landscape. I will include Swordland in that if I have anything to say about it. The comprehensive plan lays out investments amounting to 150 billion KS over the next 5 years, seeking to significantly boost Rika's public infrastructure. Key projects include upgrading 5,000 kilometers of rail and road network, constructing 3 major hospitals, and establishing 200 healthcare facilities across the continent. Simultaneously, an unprecedented revamp of Rika's education sector is on the anvil, with plans to construct 150 new schools and introduce an enhanced curriculum focusing on science, technology, and the arts. With this initiative, the CSP endeavors to portray Rika as a beacon of sustainable development, providing a counter-narrative to ATO's capitalist expansion and exhibiting the efficacy of the CSP's social-political model. That is exactly what I'm after. Now, where is Rika? That would be my next question. It might be off map because I am not... I would have thought it was somewhere here, but it might be... Yeah, it might be off map. So this is exactly the sort of thing that I was hoping to achieve. How can we get in on that is what I'm asking. But it seems that we have decisions to make first. So the game's teasing me with these things, and that's where I want to be. And ideally, we would have been the investment target of that. But well, we shall see if we get there. For now, what is up here? We've got a report about the EPA. We have a Tourism and Cultural Preservation Act, and we have a briefing on the results of the Reform Committee. So let's get through that. And unfortunately, none of these things aligns with my list of priorities. So the GNA of Swordland gathered yesterday for a significant session where a proposal from Franz Richter, supported by Mansoon Leke, was put forth to repeal the EPA of 32. The proposal to repeal or modify this law has been a topic of debate in the Assembly, with proponents arguing for an open market approach and opponents advocating for the protection of Swordland's critical industries from foreign influence. If the repeal successfully garners the requisite majority in the Assembly, it will then head to the Maroon Palace for final approval. This puts me in an uncomfortable spot because that means so if we're looking at the Assembly, I was hoping to work with the PFJP as well as the Reform Wing in our own party, as well as Circus, who I had firmly booked into our camp, when it came to changing the constitution and building up steam against the old guard in the Supreme Court, because we need to get 6 votes in the Supreme Court for a simple majority in order to change the constitution, and these 6 votes would have to themselves obviously, be interested in wanting to wanting to change the constitution and remove power from themselves, which usually is quite uncommon in political circles. You rarely find politicians voting to remove power from themselves. Now that means that unfortunately now they're bringing the foreign investment bit on the energy infrastructure through, and I need Franz Richter on my side because we're aligned on the constitutional changes. Now how much? And now I've got Leke from the Independents voting for this as well for some obscure reason to get additional international investment into the energy infrastructure. I might have to concede that, and then later on nationalize the whole shebang. Unfortunately, that's not good because that means that we've already had the problem. Maybe we can twist it in such a way that we get international investment from United Kontana or from the Kontanan Security Pact. That would actually it'd still not be ideal because energy infrastructure is energy independence is an important national goal. But it might be a temporary compromise that might also be why, that could be a reason why Leke is in this. He might be more aligned with Kontana, and he might have because they already, because they actually had the influence in Gazprom initially before we nationalized the whole thing under Sol. So if we can make that as a concession, that we're not selling the energy, or we're not getting investment from just anybody, but we wish to have politically aligned investments, so we would effectively concede some national control over to Kontana in return for security guarantees. That would be a deal we could make. It's not ideal, but that has actually precedence. So there's obviously we'll have to make some stronger guarantees than last time, because last time we just nationalized it and told them to bugger off. But that might be a path we could potentially take in order to get Leke on our side, in order to appease Richter. Even though that's probably not what he wants, he most likely wants to get local investment, like from Lesbia or from the Acasian Treaty. Either way, all of this is secondary. So yeah, this is a good thing not to veto that, just out of political calculus. Let's see. We also have the Grand National Assembly's Green Bill in Holsord. What is that now? It's preparing the Green Bill with a focus on promoting sustainable industry practices, particularly in Gruny. Gruny was that over here? Section 1 of the Act proposes stricter regulations on industrial pollution and waste disposal. It suggests hefty fines for non-compliance, with the collected revenue to be reinvested in environmental recovery projects. Gruny was here. Yes, because this is tourism land and wine land, and we clearly want to keep the heavy industry in check there. That's something I'm actually in favor of, because environmental protection is an important factor, and we've already had problems in Narbel with the balance between natural resource extraction and ecological impact. That is unfortunately always the pull when it comes to natural resources. Extraction tends to be messy, and processing of extracted materials tends to be even worse. So, and environmental protection makes that less profitable. But that's where nationalization comes in again, because we can. What you otherwise end up with, and that's the last tangent for today, I promise. What you otherwise end up with is generally, if it's not profitable enough, there's no investment in resource extraction, which then leads to situations where you have critical industry and supply chains which are dependent on resources from other countries that don't have strict regulations in that sense, which then leads to high vulnerability, because that effectively gives them power to shut off your whole supply chain. Anyway, last one. Okay, so the Tourism and Cultural Preservation Act. Let's have a look at that. The Swordland Tourism and Cultural Preservation Act aims to amplify the cultural allure and tourism viability of Borin, Ribery, Lochhaven, Anrica, and Benfey. Well, if they would stop setting things on fire, that would be good. The Grand National Assembly is called, jokes aside, one of the most toxic things for tourism is unrest. The GNA is calling a collective push to establish Swordland as a global tourist destination and reduce the effects of the recession. Section 1 focuses on the cultural elevation of these cities, identifying local food, drink, music, dance, architecture, and historical sites as unique selling propositions. This cultivation of cultural tourism is positioned as a catalyst for economic invigoration. Obviously, tourism generally tends to have knock-on effects. Okay, we'll get into that in a second. Section 2 imposes the restoration and preservation of key historical landmarks in Lochhaven and Anrica. Concurrently, it proposes a comprehensive renovation of tourist infrastructure in Benfey to enrich the visitor experience and generate steady income for local communities. And Section 2, subsection 1, further commits to the safeguarding and development of the caves of Antera and Ribery and the vineyards in Borin, recognizing their potential as tourism growth drivers. All right, so we are going to have, if I sign this, it'll cost me another budget. So we'll have to do a bit of impact assessment because, of course, I'm getting a bill, but I get zero impact assessment and zero economic prediction of the potential outcome of this bill, and if that warrants the spending of the government budget. So let's take a look around. We've got Borin. Which is over here. Borin, everything has widespread protests these days. Borin, tradition of winemaking continues, a little to no change. The elders of Borin actually don't enjoy the waves of tourists coming and disrupting their lives. Well, I'm sorry. This is not your retirement home. The city is dependent on tourism, wine trade, and the attention it gets. Strategy of the municipality remains the same. Okay, so Borin, sleepy wine region. We have Ribery, which is in Gelsland. This was more of the high-tech area, wasn't it? This is a tourist destination, important tourist destination. Ports accommodating thousands of local and international tourists every year. Okay, great economic opportunity. Rent out the houses or even sell property to make a lot of money. City is also very special due to the fact that it can see the Gulf clearly. The one with the inactive gas platform in it is the only city that can provide that except for Lochhaven. Wasn't this where we had the? Oh, this was where we had the mansion. Was it the Blue Mansion or something? Like legacy of the old riches of the state. The scenic hillside, locals have been more vocal of the shift in the tradition and life. Doesn't change the fact that without tourism, the city would be very much lost. Real estate industry began to invest heavily in the outskirts of the urban area in the hopes of cashing out on tourist influx. Okay, that's important. Ribery is beautiful and worth a visit. Locals say if you have been to Ribery once, then you have been to Ribery 1,000,000 times. Okay, another wine location, but this is an important one. So we actually have some real estate investment that was front running a potential increase in tourism. So that's a good positive reason to do that. Now, Lochhaven itself, I didn't know that was actually. It's more about historical landmarks in Lochhaven, because this is more like an industrial port, from what I remember. National Business Council, yeah. So we do have the rich and wealthy over there. It's got lesbian architecture. I do have to be a little bit careful. YouTube. It is lesbian. It is very much family friendly. Creates a very unique skyline compared to the other less imaginative cities. Also home to numerous theaters, art exhibitions, and a glamorously vivid nightlife. Okay. And okay, so this is more of this is on top of being an export port, it's also, and a business hub, it is also a sort of cultural, the culture and the arts kind of hub. So that makes sense as well. We've got Anrika, which is currently on fire. Birthplace of Swedish nationalism, yep. Famous for its beautiful architecture, cuisine, and culture. Okay. We've got musicians, folk traditions, and all of the other things, and that also makes sense. And we've got Benfi. What's Benfi? Oh, Benfi's out here. Okay, yeah, that is the wine and tourism section. So let's look at it again under the auspices of economic recovery, because that is literally what we are looking for here. I would say it's not solving an immediate problem, but it's more of an opportunity. So far, the regions aren't necessarily struggling from what I've seen. Obviously, except for the protests, but that's another problem altogether. So Gruni, Holsort, and Gelsland, with Lachhaven obviously being the other one. These are regions that are generally working reasonably well. I would have preferred if we could do something for the poorer regions. So far, in terms of policies, what we've done is we're doing the L1 high-speed railway, which is well, assisting the towns between Gelsord and Holsord, or between Lachhaven and Holsord, and doesn't really help the impoverished regions. So these are the sort of problematic regions where I was hoping we could do something else, because right now the only thing we've really done is state-funded assistance, but that's not an investment. That is a temporary measure to alleviate these kind of problems. I would have hoped that we could do something for these regions, because right now, well, that's unrest. There's some unhappiness in here, and there's lots of poverty over there. Whereas these regions are actually doing reasonably well. So it is an economic boost, but it is costing us an increasingly scarce amount of government budget. I would have really liked to hear something from my advisors in terms of projected impact of this, because it feels like it's a minor. It feels like the impact may be reasonably minor, especially that we currently have problems with unrest. So it's more of an investment in the future at this point. Now, I did mention that I believe that government investments should be infrastructural. As such, let me put it this way. I would have preferred to be able to do the roads in Angland as well as the L1, instead of doing the L1 and the tourism bill. So it's good. And I think tourism is a potential. It's a sort of like influx of foreign capital. The other problem that we're actually having is the 10% inflation. So if we are looking at boosting economic activity, and if I'm wrong and the handouts to the people are inflationary because of increase of demand, inflation would actually be beneficial for tourism, because it would allow, it would devalue our currency, which is beneficial for export and for tourism. So tourism in that regard is not a bad policy, provided unfortunately it's not going to give us any immediate relief, because right now the country's on fire and nobody wants to come if people are shooting each other in the streets. That said, in this regard, I'm not entirely. Well, it's minus one. It's the minus one budget that bothers me a little bit. Like I'm happy with this bill. I think it's a good bill. The big question for me is, do I want to spend? I mean, I have headroom here, and we are struggling economically. So at this point, we need to do something. And the other point is that we actually start having America under lockdown at this point, which is this has really surprised me. I was not expecting this to go this bad. And we've also had some problems. Unfortunately, none of this actually helps the Lorraine region again. But I think this is the only city. Let me just quickly go through them and see if any of the others. I don't think there are protests, yes, but this is the first one that has gone under lockdown. The other ones are widespread protests everywhere, I think, at this point. Actually, not in Gelsord. How about Lahaven? Yeah, Lahaven spread protests as well. So, not an awful lot that we have. I wasn't expecting this to be the first place where things got out of hand. I would have expected some of the poorer western regions, or maybe here, but this seems to be more of a sleepy sort of mountainous area. So in that regard, it doesn't really directly help, but we are starting to see unrest here. And in the end, anything that's good for Swordland is good for all of Swordland, because we are, at the end of the day, we might have to see internal mobility if we can't find ways to improve the economic situation in the west and in the north, or we would have to see continuous government investment in these regions. So it's a good bill. It helps, and right now anything helps, I would say. It doesn't help immediately. It's a future investment, and it is completely sitting on the possibility that, or banking on the possibility that we can get these protests under control, because there's not going to be any tourism otherwise anyway. I can go down further into debt. The problem is current debt to GDP is 138%, but that is a denominator problem potentially, because we've lost. I didn't take note of that, but I think we've lost about a third of GDP. So we're going to have to invest ourselves out of this in order to get that increased, which then reduces the ratio. Also unemployment. So if we can, let me put it this way. If people from Nargis or from Angland can find seasonal jobs in Ribery, in the tourism related industry, because tourism has knock-on effects. So first, the primary ones are real estate. So anything that rents out for people to live in, hotels, holiday homes, these kind of things. It has knock-on effect on hospitality sector. It has knock-on effect on the cultural entertainment sectors. So concerts, art galleries, museums, sports events, anything like that. So and it needs the infrastructure. Right. So if you have, let's say, a very attractive exhibition, but you have nowhere for people to stay, people won't come. Stuff like that. So in that regard, it might also provide additional jobs for people from the poorer regions, who would have to let's say, seasonally work in the other regions, in any kind of season. Let's say it's wine season, right? Like it's harvest season. And unemployed people from Lorraine could travel to Gruny and assist in wine tastings, assist in the harvest, and then return home with whatever they've earned. So there are definitely positive effects of tourism into for the economy as a whole. I think I'm gonna sign the bill. All right, I've signed it. We're done. We have the tourism industry is booming nationwide. We've set the act, and hopefully graph goes up at some point, and we're down to 2 government budget at this point. So it's good, and I am willing to go down into debt quite a little bit, but we also have to be careful because we clearly have to make compromises at times, and see where this goes. But this is one of these economic situations where going into debt government-wise in order to get us out of the recession is unfortunately necessary. And I am banking on the nationalization of, so we haven't looked at tax and revenue at all. I have no idea what that looks like. But we're looking at the potential nationalization of businesses that were sold under value during the previous administration. We're looking at potentially increased taxes on the wealthy, and if the wealthy wish to leave, then good riddance. But there might be reform of loopholes. But most importantly, we're looking at corruption. So we might actually find significant tax loopholes that can be closed that were ineffective or were leading to decreased government intake due to corruption. And we will eventually have to look into reducing government expenditure as well for entitlements or whatever else comes around. So the priority are the people, and the root cause is the economy. If we can't get the economy to work, then nothing else is going to work. So that's always going to come first. Everything else needs to come second. And I do sincerely hope that next time, in the next episode, we can get to the 2 most important items on my list. First item, get the riots to stop. Second item, national security via international diplomacy. Because I simply don't see how we can raise armed forces sufficiently to deter a country the size of Rumburg, which goes all the way, basically, and make it not feasible for them to successfully invade us. So we need to get into, at the very least, an alliance with Volksland. I would prefer that much, much more over Agnolia. And unfortunately, I can't get a diplomatic mission there. But Velen might be interesting, although I don't know how well they are situated militarily, but they are, well, we're not particularly fond of the type of government that they have, but we're not one to tell people how to run their country. And this is an important outpost of the Continental Security Pact, which means I sincerely hope that we can get foreign investment from there, maybe into the energy infrastructure and resource extraction, and that we can use that leverage as deterrence of Rumburg. That's my basic. I simply don't see Agnolia being the place that can do this, because it's tiny. It's the size of one of our states, and it's got a weak military. It's cute, but it's not gonna deter Rumburg. They're gonna shrug it off. So that's my hope for the next episode, and we shall see how things develop from there. The economy remains unstable, which is presumably mostly due to the riots going on. And we are rapidly draining the existing government budget after reallocating the funds that Alfonso, the funds that were left after Alfonso had corrupted what he could and what wasn't nailed down. And with that, I'll see you all in the next one.